So recently, Behavior has dropped a new developer update talking about all the proposed changes coming to the game very, very soon. What they're looking at the moment is a new progression system to reduce the grind by about 75%, perk changes to shake up the meta, matchmaking incentives to encourage people to play the opposite role, and overall gameplay updates that should improve the experience for all players. How we doing, everyone? I'm Four, and today we're going to be looking at all of these changes, providing some analysis and my opinions on the new developer update. So Behavior has stated that the current grind to unlock all new perks in every character by the time the next chapter releases, you'd need to play an estimated average of 4.1 hours every day. I'm assuming this is over the course of 3 months from a chapter to chapter release, but this is now being reduced by about 75% to about 1.01 hours each day, and that's without factoring in any blood point bonuses from events, perks, or offerings. The teachable rarity of perk is no more, as Behavior has decided to remove this entirely. Instead, perks are directly tied to prestiging a character, which is no longer optional. Instead, at level 50, you'll automatically be given a blood web with only a single node explaining the prestige system. Tier 2 and 3 perks are now unlocked on all of your other characters for that role after prestiging a character to level 2 and 3 respectively. Prestiging also will no longer remove your add-ons or offerings. There's going to be a lot more of this that you can read in the dev notes here, but I'll link that in the description of this video, so if you want to read over it and look over it for yourself, feel free to click the link in the description. Now, the next thing here is that no offerings, add-ons, anything like that will be removed, which is great. I think it's going to encourage people to blood web a lot more on other characters. Make sure you get the new teachable perks on everyone and allow for more experimenting on new killers as soon as they release. And also new survivor perks on your favorite main with all your cosmetics and all your offerings, flashlights, whatever, that you don't have to get rid of now, just so that you can get a prestige level. They're not removing any of the blood web or the bloody cosmetics or anything. However, they have changed that up a bit. You can find more on that in the description once you check the dev notes for yourself. Next up is matchmaking incentives, which are fairly simple. The more one role needs players, the more the blood point bonus is for playing that role. Crossplay does have to be turned on for this, but you're looking at about 75% increase to blood points, up to 100% total. I would say on average, this depends on your region, the time that you're playing, that sort of stuff, because sometimes, for example, in Australia, early on during the day, it is impossible to get a killer queue and a lot easier to get survivor queues, whereas late at night, it takes a lot more time to get a killer queue. So I'm assuming that this incentive will make the current queue time a lot faster for everyone that's looking to play the game, regardless of what time or what region you're from. Now for a big change. Behavior has admitted gen speeds have been too quick, and it's been a problem for a while. With a lot of players on both ends feeling generators are way too fast, Behavior has looked at what can be done to reduce the stresses of playing killer and seeing the same 4 to 5 perks every game for gen slowdown, such as Corrupt Intervention, Pop Goes the Weasels, Scourge Hook Pain Resonance, Ruin, Deadlock, all these sorts of gen slowdown perks. The way they've combated this is by now making generators take an extra 10 seconds for a total time of 90 seconds to power one generator. Secondly, every time a killer kicks a generator, it will instantly remove 2.5% of the maximum progress of that generator. I love this change. I think there is just nothing better than having more time to down that first survivor, get your early pressure, and not have to worry about 3 gens instantly popping every single game, but also allowing myself to bring more creative builds where I don't feel the need to run slowdown every game. I think this is a really healthy change for both sides, as it allows for survivors to play a bit more altruistic, a bit more dangerous, get into chases for longer, really reward them for resource management, and also providing survivors an optimal way to actually complete generators and think about what they're doing rather than just finding the nearest one, holding M1 for 90 seconds and getting it over and done with. I think this change is going to be good for the game overall, and it's going to really see a longer, more drawn out, but not in like a very slow way, a more exciting way where killers actually stand more of a chance and they're a bit more feared than they currently are. Personally, love this change. And now for general killer improvements. And these are quite big. Firstly, the time to break walls, pallets, and gens have all been improved by 10%, meaning killers can get back in the action a lot faster than normal. They've also made the successful basic attack hit cooldown 10% faster. Survivors will now also get a reduced speed boost after taking a hit by 10% to help a killer stick to the inner chase more. Lastly, in a controversial take, Bloodlust tiers 2 and 3 have been buffed, now being received after 25 and 35 seconds instead of 30 and 45 seconds. Behavior stated they'll be keeping a close eye on how this affects every killer, so hopefully nothing too crazy happens. Personally, I feel like it's a bit much reducing the basic attack hit cooldown and survivor speed, but until we see it in action, we'll never know exactly how strong this is. I'm hoping this doesn't make survivor unplayable, but we'll have to see, and Behavior is still subject to change this. And finally, Behavior have addressed camping and tunneling. Notably how DS, Dead Hard, and BT all commonly use second chance perks used to avoid such things. Because the devs don't want survivors to have to be limited to specific perks to actually have fun and play the game, once the update drops, survivors will receive 5 seconds of endurance after being unhooked, and 7% haste also for 5 seconds. Both of these effects will be cancelled early if a survivor performs what behavior is now calling a conspicuous action, which includes doing a gen, healing either yourself or anyone else, interacting with a totem in any way, sabotaging a hook, unhooking others, and now opening an exit gate. I like this change. Too many times will we have killers sitting there just waiting for a survivor to get immediately unhooked, chancing the fact that they may have BT. That's no longer a thing. Now they'll always have this perk ready for them. The fact that there's 7% haste as well for 5 seconds gives a small use of Guardian. I think it's a great change. I think this doesn't affect every killer, unfortunately, such as Nurse, Blight, Spirit, all the top hitters that can get around the map fast or have some kind of ranged thing like Deathslinger and Huntress. Doesn't really affect them as much. Mainly Nurse M1 killers that are being a bit toxic and trying to go straight off hook, but again, we'll see what behavior actually does with this overall. And now for the biggest change of this update, the perk changes. We're just going to jump straight into these. The first perk on the list is Barbecue. Currently, as we all know, upon hooking a survivor, you'll see the aura of distant survivors for a short duration and gain a stacking blood point bonus for each unique survivor hooked. The change, blood points are no longer included in this perk. I can understand that they want to remove the blood point bonus from perks because of all the changes to the grind and progression, whatever. I don't like this change whatsoever. I think this should be a base kit thing. Hooking every survivor should give you a 25% increase to your blood point gain overall, as the new changes don't really affect someone in my position with every perk unlocked on every killer, all prestige 350, ready to go for the next killer to come out. I don't like this change. I think this should be a base kit feature if they're going to remove it from this perk, and I sincerely hope they consider changing this over. I understand not wanting to tie blood points to a perk because that takes up a slot and everybody runs Barbecue every game. It still does what it does. It's still helpful on Nurse, Blight, the people that can get cross-map shit like Huntress. But overall, I don't think this is a good change if they're not adding the blood point bonus to the base game. Next up, we have Hex Ruin, currently a Hex totem that regresses generators at a rate of 200% when a generator isn't being worked on by a survivor. The new effect, I don't think this is a very good one. Shortens this down to 100% regression rate and will now deactivate automatically after a survivor has been killed. I don't think you should be punished for keeping a Hex totem up and also hooking survivors. I don't think it should be 100% because now the perk doesn't feel rewarding whatsoever. This change has, for lack of a better word, ruined Ruin. I don't see anybody bringing this perk anymore after the changes. The perk is not exactly run all too much with the current way that Hex totems are immediately cleansed in every high MMR match. I think this change is terrible for Ruin. I think it did need a nerf. It definitely needed a change, but I don't think this is the way to go about it. Next up is Pop Goes the Weasel, which currently gives the killer a bonus regression on their next gen kick after hooking a survivor for 40 seconds, at a base rate of 25% total generator progress regression, meaning if a gen is at 25% charges, gets kicked, it's now at 0. This change has reduced this down to 20% of the current progression, meaning if it only has 10 charges, the gen will go down to 8 charges. I think this is okay. It will help you in a lot of 3-gen situations. If you can identify which generator has the most progress, it can still be good. It is a bit of a nerf, but based on the fact that gens now take 90 seconds, you can technically get more regression based off of one kick, I think. Overall, it's a bit much. If it was 20% of overall progression, I think that'd be great. 20% of current progression, not the best. I don't think we'll be seeing Pop Goes the Weasel too much in games anymore. Still a good choice for people that need to kick gens and people that like to kick gens and control 3-gen situations, but overall, I think personally I'll stop using this perk quite as much. And now Corrupt Intervention, which currently blocks the 3 furthest generators from the killer at the beginning of the game for 120 seconds. Now, the perk will automatically deactivate the moment a survivor enters the dying state. I don't like this. I don't think you should be punished for succeeding early and getting a lot of early game pressure. I don't think that you should be forced to drag things out if you want the full effect of your Corrupt Intervention. Survivors already wait out this perk anyway at high MMR. It's just really pointless for them to remove it after someone enters the dying state. I understand that this perk is meant to be more for setting up and making sure you can find survivors early. I just think removing the perk after 120 seconds already was fine, and getting rid of it just because someone enters the dying state, I think is a really, really bad change to corrupt. Maybe they could have made a base kit corrupt of 60 seconds, maybe make this perk double that, I don't know, but I don't think the change of removing this perk entirely once you get your first down is a good thing. Tinker hasn't been changed too much, and seems to be more in line with what people have been wanting for a long time. Currently, when a generator reaches 70% progression, the killer will receive a loud noise notification and become undetectable for 16 seconds. This has been changed to only work on every generator once per match maximum. So it works like Merciless Storm, where it only activates on one gen once per trial. And I think this is the change that everyone's been wanting. It's been too many 3-gen situations where you've got a Blight with Tinkerer and Pop, gets a Survivor down, goes and pops the gen, you get Tinkerer proccing again. Every time you know that a gen's being worked on and you're getting more progression. This will make this perk less annoying, but still really effective. And at least you'll always know which generator they have been targeting at some point in the match, which survivors will typically cling to as a priority gen. Overall, a good change. I think it's very healthy, and we'll probably not see Tinkerer as much, but I think it will definitely be a little more in line with what everyone's been wanting for a very long time. Now for good old Hex No One Escapes Death, or Know It as everyone knows it. We all know what this perk does. Currently, when the gates are powered, which is all 5 gens being complete, every survivor is exposed until the totem is destroyed, and the killer gains a haste bonus. Now it does the same thing, but survivors will see the hex totem within 4 meters upon activation of the perk, and this range will then increase to 24 meters over the course of 30 seconds. Not a great change, in my opinion. It still gives a lot of power early on, and on bigger maps, this can still be quite a lot of time searching for a hex totem over that 30 seconds. If the killer downs someone immediately as soon as the gens have been powered, they get a hook. That's 30 seconds wasted of their final health state, for example, where they've got a minute maximum if they hit all their skill checks. 30 seconds of that is gone finding the perk and then getting to the hook and then unhooking them. Not a great change. I've always proposed the change of you have it no way to work with every Dalt totem on the map that is remaining at the end of the trial. That's how many downs you get for free. I think that'd be a lot better of a change. This doesn't really seem to nerf it all that much, and it's quite a problem because a lot of people don't just randomly cleanse totems. Depending on who you're with, some people obviously like to go on their totem hunt, which is fine, but most games know it is ran. It's always sort of a, oh great, of course they've got this perk. So, I don't know. I don't like this change. I feel like they should have probably gone with a totem idea based on how many dull totems are left on the map. That's how many uses you get, but we'll see how it works. Maybe behavior will change this again if it is still strong in the PTB. If it doesn't really change the aspect of this perk much, we'll see, but not a fan. And finally, for the killer meta perks, Scourge Hook Pain Resonance. Currently, this perk provides you with 4 white hooks which activate when a survivor is placed on them, and it instantly regresses the most complete generator by 15% of its maximum progression, while providing a loud noise notification and making any survivors working on it at the time of the explosion scream. The new change removes the notification and no longer makes survivors scream. This change, I think, is extremely, extremely healthy. This perk does too much. It's currently gen regression, it is currently info. It does way too much. It also pairs in with Dead Man's Switch, which is strong after they buff that. This perk should be one or the other, information or regression. And the fact that it is now just the regression with no notification, no scream, I think works a lot better, is a lot healthier, and might make some survivors complain a lot less about the fact that, oh good, there's pain resonance again. Overall, a really healthy change, and I think this is just good for the game overall. Now onto the survivor perks, the first and most anticipated perk, Dead Hard. It feels redundant explaining this perk, but why not? Currently, Dead Hard provides injured survivors the ability to dash forward and become invulnerable for the duration of the dash. This has now been changed to provide survivors with a 1-second endurance effect with no dash. I love this change. Hopefully there's an animation that goes along with this, but this now provides skilled survivors the ability to activate it whenever they want to. But there's also that risk potential of not just dead hard for free, dead hard for distance. It's not going to be a problem anymore. You dead hard, you mess up the timing, you go down. You dead hard, you get the timing right, you get your speed boost, and everything goes well for you. The only thing that I could see this being an issue with is people can just pallet camp, hold dead hard, use it when the killer's about to swing, then go through the pallet, run away, or drop the pallet, whatever. Sort of a get out of jail free card still in that sense, but at least dead harding for distance is no longer going to be a thing, and I'm sure a lot of killer mains will stop complaining about this perk a lot more, because the most frustrating thing that I see is that every time that someone is versing people with 4 dead hards, it's always just a constant complaint about survivors bringing a specific perk. I think this change is extremely healthy, might have some issues, but Behavior is hopefully going to keep a closer eye on this perk in particular, especially in the PTB. We'll see how it goes from here. The second most anticipated perk, Decisive Strike. Currently, this perk allows you to escape the killer's grasp for 60 seconds after being unhooked and picked up again, which then stuns the killer for 5 seconds, but it is cancelled after a conspicuous action has been performed. Now, Decisive will deactivate after the exit gates are powered, which is again when 5 generators have been completed, and will only stun the killer for 3 seconds. This is very hit or miss for me. I understand that getting one kill can be a make or break for a killer's mental state. However, I don't think the perk should just immediately deactivate once a gen has been completed at the end of the game. It's a bit weird that if the killer decides to then target one person with no ed, down them, they get hooked, they then get unhooked, can down them again, and there's no repercussions for that whatsoever. I think that's a bit rough. But the 3-second stun change I think will be a lot easier for people to deal with. It'll make DS-baiting and lockers a lot less strong, and will force more killers to just eat a DS, so perk value is getting used there for survivors. Overall, I think a healthy change, but we'll see how it goes in the endgame. I can see a lot of people complaining about this change. And again, the third most anticipated perk from the survivor list, Borrowed Time. BT currently makes survivors you unhook have the endurance effect for 12 seconds. Now with the base kit BT changes, Borrowed Time will extend the effects of unhooking a survivor, which again is 7% haste and 5 seconds of endurance, by 10 seconds. These effects will still be cancelled by any conspicuous actions this survivor performs. I think this just makes BT really strong. There's not much to say about this. It's going to be good for anti-tunneling. It actually will affect the nurse a little bit. It'll affect the blight a little bit. Good change, healthy for the game. Base kit BT being very, very helpful. This BT will allow for more altruistic builds. If your goal is going to be the unhooker of the team, you should run this perk. Good change. I think it's very necessary to have something that extends this effect, because camping and tunneling will still be prevalent after this update. Iron Will, which only recently received a buff, is now getting nerfed. Currently, this effect makes your grunts of pain while injured silent. That's literally the perk. The change will now make it so it's only 75% effective and will no longer work while exhausted, but it does not cause exhaustion itself. A bit of an unnecessary change, I think, personally. I feel like if you're running, it should be 75%, and if you're walking or standing still, it should be 100%. It allows for sneaky plays, and I think this change is just a little bit off. I don't really know what else they could have done except what I just suggested. I don't know. I don't really have a great opinion of the change of Iron Will. I don't really have any opinion on this change. It's just a bit weird to me. Iron Will works really well on newer killers, but not really more experienced players. People typically know where to look if someone's going to hide in a corner, etc. It does allow for better mind games. I don't know, a weird change overall. Self-care, self-care, self-care. This perk is known as the only killer perk survivors can bring, which will now be even more true than ever. Currently, self-care allows you to self-heal at 50% speed, as well as increasing your efficiency with a medkit. The change has made it so the medkit's secondary effect has been completely removed, and now lets survivors heal at a pitiful 35% of the regular speed. I really think behavior missed the mark with this perk. Circular healing exists, allows everyone to heal at 50% speeds. Yes, this perk is used a lot, but it's more of a get-out-of-jail-free card if your team is not the best in solo queue situations. It's good for newer players who feel the need to constantly be healed. Lowering this down to 35%, I feel like, is the biggest misstep possible. This definitely needed a buff, not a nerf. I can't believe behavior even thinks that this is a meta perk. It's kind of just a joke what they've done to this perk, and there's literally no reason to run it over circular healing now, because it just becomes more efficient to bless a totem and heal yourself for like 1.5 times rather than the 2 times you need to heal yourself with the boon for it to become worthwhile bringing. This perk has been completely gutted, and I think it's just pointless to run anymore. Run a boon, you'll be saving yourself and your team time. Terrible perk change. Completely disagree with it. And lastly, for the survivor meta perk changes, Spine Chill. Currently, this increases your action speeds, chances for skill checks, and vaulting when the killer is looking at you by, I think, 6%. This change will now make Spine Chill only activate if the killer has a clear line of sight on you, now has a lingering effect of 0.5 seconds, and will no longer affect vaulting. I like the fact that they removed the vaulting speed thing, and it now buffs stealth killers a little bit more, or anyone that's undetectable. I think the change should just be, if the killer is undetectable, Spine Chill does not activate. Leave it at that. Maybe remove the vault speed. Kind of seems pointless to run Spine Chill now. I don't think this is going to be a very well-used perk after the changes. But we'll see what people do with it. I'm sure there's going to be some creative way to use it. I've also seen complaints from the deaf community saying that this perk has just been ruined for them and the game becomes a lot harder without running Spine Chill on Survivor. So hopefully the accessibility options maybe get brought back by behavior once they realize that this will affect deaf players. Who knows? I'm hoping for positive changes, but we'll see what they do with it. Overall, I think a bit too much of a nerf, but removing Volt Speed I think was a good idea. Alright, so now we're on to the weaker perks that are being changed. Starting off, we have Overcharge, which in its current state, after kicking a generator, makes the next survivor interacting with it to be faced with a difficult skill check, which missing it regresses the generator by 5%, and succeeding the skill check does not grant any bonus progression. The change retains this effect, but will also cause a kick generator's regression speed to grow from 100% to 400% over the course of 30 seconds. I think this is a great change, especially with all the changes to gen kicking and regression in general, and gen speeds. This will make this perk actually dangerous for survivors who can't just simply tap the gen now and hit its skill check and then nothing else happens. If a survivor is on the opposite side of the map and they need to tap this generator, a lot of progress is going to go missing from it. This is double what current ruin speeds are at 400%. I think this is going to be a great change. It'll allow for a lot more creativity in builds. A lot of gen kicking builds will use this perk now. Overall, a positive change. Next up is Eruption, which is a bit of a weird perk, so I'll just explain the whole thing. After kicking a generator, its aura is highlighted in yellow. When you put a survivor into the dying state, every affected generator explodes and starts regressing, removing the highlighted auras. This applies an immediate 6% progression penalty, and any survivor that was repairing the generator when it explodes suffers from the incapacitated status effect for 16 seconds. Eruption has a cooldown of 30 seconds also. All they've done is up the numbers from 6 to 10% and 16 seconds to 25% on the incapacitated. I think this is a good change. It's still not going to be a very commonly used perk, but I do think, like Overcharge, it will increase gen kicking builds, which is a lot better than passive gen regression like Scourge of Pain Resonance Ruin. I think it's a healthy change. It requires killers to go out of the way to apply this perk, and actually gives people a reason to run it other than, I want to change up what I'm using, I don't want to use meta perks. Overall, a positive change. Still not going to be too commonly used, but hopefully this encourages people to be a little bit more creative with their builds. Now for Knockout, which is a bit of a weird perk, but currently after putting a survivor into the dying state with your basic attack, the survivor's aura is not revealed to any other survivor with further than 16 meters away. For the next 15 seconds, the dying survivor suffers from a decreased field of view and the blindness status effect, and they crawl 50% slower and are temporarily deafened. Part that I don't get, but it says in addition to its current effect, Knockout will cause dying survivors to crawl 50% slower for 15 seconds and reduce their recovery speed by 25%, which it already does with the crawl slower speed, I don't know. But the reduced recovery speed is in fact nice. I think this will be still used as primarily a toxic perk that people just want to slug everyone at 5 gens. I've never seen this perk used in a healthy way. I've only ever seen people use this to bleed everyone out really early on into a game as Nurse or Blight. I don't know, not really a great change. I think this perk should have been reworked to something a little bit better. Maybe if the survivor stops regressing and they starts crawling instead of recovering, it reduces their recovery rate. I don't know, something like that, but not really too excited about facing any Knockout Nurses at 5 gens. Coulrophobia currently makes the healing speed of survivors within your terror radius reduced by 50%. On top of this, Coulrophobia will now increase the speed of skill checks by 50%. So not the rate of skill checks, but the speed of them, which can be quite interesting with anti-skill check builds with like Huntress Lullaby or on the Doctor. Overall, just a healthy change. I think this perk will actually get some use, but it's still one of those terror radius perks, which I don't think is going to be all that good except in unique situations. But at least it allows for a bit more creativity with killer perks, so I'm all for it. Dark Devotion in its current form transfers your terror radius to the Obsession if they are hit with a basic attack. This change makes it so whenever the Obsession loses a health state by any means, the perk activates. Just a healthy change. I think that's how it should be. Not really much to say about Dark Devotion, just an overall good change. Jolt, or Surge as most of us still call it, currently regresses all generators within a 32-meter radius of you after downing a survivor with a basic attack. This applies an immediate 8% regression and has a cooldown of 40 seconds. This change has now just removed the cooldown. I would have liked to have seen them make it so it works on non-basic attack hits anytime you down a survivor by any means, but an overall healthy change for a pretty decent perk. I'm going to use this a lot more often. I think this will go extremely, extremely well with passive regression perks. Overall, a good change. Lethal Pursuer, one of my favorite perks, has now received a buff where alongside its current effect of revealing survivors' auras for 9 seconds at the beginning of the match, now also extends all aura reading effects by 2 seconds. This includes add-ons, survivor perks, and killer perks. I don't know why Behavior buffed this perk. It's already super strong for information at the beginning of the match. Allows the game to start really quickly for killers that use this perk. Now it's just increased. Now it's not useless after the initial 9 seconds. It's just going to allow for a lot more aura reading perks. I'm personally going to use it on my Huntress instead of Barbecue now. I love this change. yeah, no behavior. This perk definitely needed a buff. Great change. Now a useful perk. Will run at 10 out of 10. Don't know why they buffed this perk, but I'm glad they did. Scourge Hook Gifted Pain was a bit of a weird perk on release, and still to this day isn't used all too often. After hooking a survivor on a Scourge Hook, they'll be suffering from the Mangled and Hemorrhage effect. After being healed, the survivor has a reduced generator repair speed and healing speed of 9%, which now has been increased to 16%. A good change. I think this will make it a bit more in line with the other Scourge Hooks in terms of usefulness. I think you can expect to see this perk a little bit more often. Maybe running Resilience will counter it, but who knows. This effect of the decreased penalty speed, that gets removed upon being injured again until you're placed on another Scourge Hook. I think overall just a healthy change, and might start seeing this perk used a lot more common in higher MMR. Who knows? Xenophobia is a fairly weak perk when the math is all said and done. Currently, it reduces the generator's repair speeds by 5% per injured survivor, which has now been increased to 5.5%, offering a total of 22% slower speeds if all 4 survivors are injured. With the increased generator repair time of 90 seconds, this can actually come quite useful, and I think overall it's going to be really strong on people like Plague, Legion, anyone that can keep survivors injured for a long time. I think this will actually make the perk in line with other slowdown perks. A good change overall. Excited to see how this affects games and how much longer games will go for because of this one perk being used. Now finally for the killer perks, the one that we have all been waiting for, Monstrous Shrine. This perk has had a complete rework in its current prehistoric form. This perk makes the basement hooks increase survivor sacrifice progression by 9%, self-unhook difficulty by 15%, and increases the self-unhook penalty by 9% as well. This perk is now going to convert all basement hooks to Scourge Hooks, and additionally Scourge Hooks will now grant 20% faster entity progression, but only if the killer is not within 24 meters. So it's kind of a counter to camping if you run this perk. It allows for the survivors to get safer unhooks because of the fact that it's going to be paired up with things like Devour Hope, Make Your Choice, and another Scourge Hook perk. I personally really like this. I'll be using it on some niche builds myself, so I'm really keen to see how this perk works in the new meta. And now for the final section of this video, the survivor perk buffs. Starting off with Calm Spirit, this perk lowers the odds of alerting nearby crows by 100% and suppresses any urge to scream from pain at all times. In addition to this, Calm Spirit will now allow you to open chests and cleanse and bless totems silently, albeit at a 30% reduced speed. I'm still not going to use this perk. This perk creeps me out personally. Every time a survivor doesn't scream after being hit or being hooked, just makes me severely uncomfortable. I think the 30% reduced speed is a bit unnecessary, but yeah, I don't know. Calm Spirit's one of those perks that you only really run if you're doing a Jake Adept or you've got some issues, but we'll see what this does. I don't think this is going to be too much a difference. Secondly, we have Saboteur, which currently allows a survivor to see the auras of hooks within a 56-meter radius of the pickup location of a downed survivor, and allows you to sabotage a hook without a toolbox in 2.5 seconds, with a cooldown of 60 seconds. The update will allow users of this perk to identify Scourge Hooks as well with a different colored aura glow. I don't know if I like this change because I personally think Scourge Hooks shouldn't be sabotageable in the first place, but I can see why it's been changed to prevent certain Scourge Hooks from being activated. Overall, a healthy change, I think, for Saboteur, minus the fact that I don't think Scourge Hooks should be sabotaged, but it is what it is. I think this will be really annoying to deal with, but a good change for those altruistic survivors. Botany Knowledge allows survivors to heal faster. The rate has gone up from 33% to 50%. It's a good buff, although healing speeds are sort of problematic topics, so we'll see how this one pans out. Hopefully nothing too crazy happens with this, and the quickest healing speed in the game stays relatively low since the circle healing nerfs. I don't know. A good buff for survivors, I guess, but if you're running self-care, I feel like this is now a necessary perk to run alongside with it. Off the Record has received a complete change, as its old form allowed survivors who have recently been unhooked to hide their aura for 80 seconds, and their grunts of pain were reduced by 100%. This has now been made to provide the endurance status effect for 80 seconds after being unhooked, which is lost after a conspicuous action has been performed by that survivor. I hate this perk. I hate this change. I really hate this change. A lot of the arguments I've been seeing for it is, yeah, it makes that survivor useless for the next 80 seconds if they want to keep their endurance effect, but somebody else can go and heal them. They can take a hit. They can take another hit, and then they can just block from your chases. I see a lot of four-man squads going to abuse this perk completely just to annoy the killer. Overall, I don't think it's a great change. I really hope that behavior changes this. I don't know. I'm not a massive fan of this change. I really think they dropped the ball with this perk change. It's just going to be used to annoy the killer more than ever, so we'll see how this pans out in the PTB. I'm hoping that people abuse it there so it doesn't make it to live in this form. Lucky Break allows survivors who become injured to have no bleeding or scratch marks for 60 seconds, previously becoming disabled once the 60 seconds has passed, although being healed pauses this timer. Now you're able to regain charges at a rate of 1 charge per second while healing another survivor. I think it's okay, this change. It allows for more immersed play, but it also requires a survivor to be injured the entire time, which is a bit risky. Without Iron Will, survivors will be caught, and with the new Iron Will change, it allows for killers to have a chance to find them if they're hiding. Bite the Bullet does kind of make up for that, though. If you've got a med kit, you're healing yourself silently, you can just regain this after healing another survivor. Overall, a decent change. I don't think any perk should just completely deactivate, like Michael's Power, after you've used it. Overall, a great change, but will allow for a bit more immersed play, so we'll see how it pans out. FawOCE has had a bit of a weird change and not the one I think most people would have expected. At the moment, it allows your first search of any chest to provide a guaranteed emergency medkit. Now the perk requires you to be injured but will always provide you with a green medkit. I kind of hate this change. I thought it would just change like Residual Manifest, how it's a rummage perk now. But instead, you're always guaranteed a green medkit if you're injured. With 3 green medkits, that's 3 self-heals per game. Healing speeds are kind of strong as it is. I don't know how this one's going to pan out. You have to be injured for this, so you are wasting your time while injured getting into a chest, and the killer can find you during that time because searching a chest can be loud. I don't know how this is going to pan out. I really don't like healing speeds as they are. Having something that allows you to constantly heal yourself in-game is going to be a bit strong. Won't be the biggest problem, though, as it's only 3 uses, and people typically bring in their super strong medkits anyway. It'll be interesting to see how Ace in the Hole works with this perk. Overall, a decent change, but I think a rummage effect like Residual Manifest would have been a lot better. Soul Survivor has always been a bit of a weird perk, and I'll just read this description verbatim to not mess it up. Each time a survivor other than yourself is killed or sacrificed, Soul Survivor gains 1 token up to a maximum of 3. Each token grants a stackable radius of 24 meters within which the killer is unable to read your aura, up to a maximum of 72 meters. It also increases the odds of becoming the killer's initial obsession by 100%. The change has added the effect of increased gen repair speed and exit gate opening speed of 75% and hatch action speed of 50%, but only when you're the last survivor remaining. This perk can be really good now for final survivor situations where the killer closes the hatch. If you have Wake Up and Soul Survivor, you're going to be able to open up the exit gate extremely quickly and ensure that you actually escape in those 50-50 scenarios of looking for the exit gates. Killer searching between it, finds the hatch, closes it. If you can actually get to an exit gate and hide properly from the killer, I think this perk will become extremely useful for actually getting you out of the trial. Honestly, a really good change to this perk. The aura reveal thing is still a bit weird. Don't exactly know how it works with perks like Barbecue, but I think overall a very, very good change to this perk, making it incredibly useful compared to what it was previously. Distortion is a simple perk. You start the game with 4 tokens, and a token is consumed every time the killer is able to read your aura. Your aura is then hidden. Now you're able to regain tokens at a rate of 1 for every 30 seconds spent inside the killer's terror radius. A good update. Distortion is always good. I'm always happy to see survivors running this non-meta perk. The fact that you can now regain tokens and you're not just capped at 4, I think is really good. Overall, a really healthy change for this perk. Lightweight's current effects make your scratch marks fade 3 seconds quicker. That's it. That's the perk. This has now been updated to 5, 4, or 3 seconds at tier 3. I'm not sure if this order is correct, but we'll go with it since they wrote it down. And it now makes your scratch marks more sporadic. We'll have to wait and see how this perk looks in-game. It doesn't sound too strong, just kind of annoying, especially on maps like Dead Dog, Ormond, and Cold Wind. We'll just have to see how it looks in the PTB, and hopefully they fix it if it's a little bit too messy. Deja Vu currently reveals the closest 3 gens for 60 seconds at the start of the trial, and after each time a generator pops. If you have a map, gens revealed by the perk will automatically be added. The update makes it so these gens will have a 5% repair speed bonus to the user on revealed generators. Bit of a baby survivor perk, but could impact 3-gen meta quite a bit. I know this will be helpful if you accidentally 3-gen on maps like Azerov's Resting Place and Suffocation Pit, maybe on Yamaoka. I think it's still just going to be better on baby survivors that don't have better options. A good change though, makes the perk a little bit more viable. No One Left Behind provides a 50% increase to unhooking and healing speeds when a gate has been opened, and 100% blood points increase in altruism. This also reveals the aura of all other survivors once the gate is open. The changes made it so there's now a 7% speed boost bonus to any survivors you unhook, and now works when gates are powered rather than opened. Can be kind of annoying with the base kit changes to unhooking, but also not too commonly used, so we'll see how this one pans out. I know I've been saying that a lot this video. It's going to be a bit annoying because now survivors can stack their movement speed, having 14% immediately off hook. I think that's just going to last for the extra 5 seconds that the now base kit changes to unhooking are. We'll see how this goes. I like the fact that it's now when the gates are powered rather than opened. Makes the perk a little bit more viable. Dark Sense in its current form shows the killer's aura for 5 seconds once a gen has been completed, and 10 seconds after the final gen has been finished. This has been reworked into showing the aura of the killer after a generator is completed, but only if they come within a 24-meter radius of you. The aura reveal is always 10 seconds now. It then deactivates. I'm assuming it will work again after the next gen is completed. Can be a bit of annoying a perk, but I think that any killer reveal perks like Kindred are good for survivors. It's always good to have information. This will definitely help solo queue players. I still think this is going to be like Deja Vu and not ran too often unless you're a bit newer to the game or you don't have better perk options on that survivor, which shouldn't really be possible with the new progression system changes. We'll see how Dark Sense looks. I think this is just going to be a little bit annoying for killers, but definitely better than old Objective Obsession. Tenacity currently allows you to crawl 50% faster and recover while crawling. It also now makes your grunts of pain 75% quieter when in the dying state. Gonna cause a lot more bleed outs in the endgame, but can be quite useful sneaking around the killer if they're mid-chase right next to you to get to another survivor to pick you up. Can also be really, really strong with Unbreakable in the endgame if a killer is being a bit of a dick. If they go and close the hatch, you can crawl to an exit gate further away from the hatch now. Open that up. If you got Wake Up, it'll be even faster. Overall, a good change, but I think will lead to a lot more bleed outs from people just cornering and hiding from the killer if they're slugging for the 4K. I guess that's what killers deserve for doing that, though, so who knows. Overzealous was released in apparently too weak a state at 8% gen repair speed increase after cleansing a totem. They've now added that cleansing a hex totem doubles the speed to 16%. Just keep in mind that losing a health state deactivates this perk until you cleanse another totem. I think this is going to make killers just not want to bring hexes whatsoever, which they're already in a kind of a weak spot since they get cleansed immediately anyway. There needs to be some kind of change to how hexes spawn and totems spawn in general, in my opinion. But I don't know, gen speeds don't need any help in my eyes. Even with the new change to 90-second generators rather than 80 seconds, I think this perk is now going to be a little bit overtuned. Hopefully they keep a close eye on this perk. And finally, we're gonna live forever. The Barbecue of Survivor perks, which provided a 25% blood point increase per safe unhook, protection hit, and killer grasp rescue from either a pallet stun or flashlight save, also allows you to pick up survivors 100% faster from the dying state. It's now lost the blood point bonus, which I know a lot of people like myself will be upset with. However, any actions that would provide the blood point bonus now activate the new secondary effect of the perk, which will now provide the survivor with the endurance state for 10 seconds, much like Soul Guard. That then deactivates the perk, and you'll need to take another protection hit, or one of the other things mentioned, to reactivate the secondary effect. Again, I think these blood point bonuses should be made base kit in the game without the need to be tied behind a perk. I do like the new secondary effect. I'm probably not going to run this perk as much anymore, though. We'll see if I'm running some For the People Soul Guard Wig Live thing. I don't know. I think they kind of butchered this. People usually run this perk just for the blood point bonus. We'll see how it pans out. Can find it to be a bit annoying in anti-slugging builds with Soul Guard For the People. We'll see how it goes. That was quite a lot to go through, so feel free to rewatch or read the post for yourself, which you can find the link to in the description. Until next time, though, take care, and I'll see you then.